What's the deal? It's your host today,
And your co-host PTZ,
and this is Jenna Talk for Youth by Youth on Jenna Fest Worldwide Radio.
the number one teen show in the Midwest, broadcast on 152 stations globally.
Today we're here with
Myron Piggie, the hustler that changed the game.
Before we get started, can you tell us where we can find you on your socials?
Myron Piggie, Facebook. That's where you find me at.
Myron Piggie. Y'all boys go follow him. So, if your life journey were in a basketball position, which position you think it'd be?
Small forward.
Small forward. Why you say small forward?
Because I was versatile. I could shoot the jumper and then I can rebound.
Where were you born and what was the environment like where you grew up?
I was born here in Kansas City, and it used to be a hospital in the inner city, and it was called Memorial Hospital, and that's basically what kind of how the blacks was born at. And I grew up in the inner city. I grew up in 12th Street to the 30s, the 40s. I grew up everywhere because we moved a lot.
Moved around a lot. Your last name is widely recognized. Does carrying the name Piggie instead of Wright carry a kind of different meaning to you?
Yeah, Piggie is it. You know, the Wright was that's what my name was supposed to be. But no one look at me as Wright. Everybody look at me as Piggie. I made my name off of Piggie.
It's very understandable.
Growing up, where do you think your spunk, edge, or attitude came from?
Came from my big brother. Came from my big brother Mike. My big brother Mike was a different dude, and he had a different mentality than a lot of guys. So that's where my mentality came from, by watching him as a big brother.
He like a thug, so?
He was one of the toughest gangsters in Kansas City in the 60s.
Talk to us about your elementary and middle school years. How was that?
My elementary and middle school year was I was different than a lot of people. I was a guy that had an attitude. I was different. So I didn't hang out with a lot of guys. I used to beat up everybody in school, and I was just different.
When you mean by beat up, were you kind of like a school bully?
No, I wasn't a school bully. Anybody who messed with the little guys, I used to beat them up.
Oh, like the protector.
Yes.
Like the muscle of the school, basically.
Yes, I've been a protector all my life.
Yeah, sure, I get that. So,
you've shared a lot about pain and hardship during high school. Can you tell us one funny, light, or positive moment from that time?
That's kind of that's funny right there. I remember one time I gave a kid, I was helping a kid out, and I was helping him out, and then he asked me for more. That ain't enough. I need more money. So that was kind of funny to me.
When you helped him out, you helped him out what?
Well, I helped him and his parents out, because at that time they didn't have no food in their house.
So you provided stuff for them?
Yeah, and then he asked for a little bit more. I think he was being a little slick, and I gave it to him because if he asked for it, he must have needed it.
That's real. At a very young age, you were forced into situations no child should face. What advice would you give a 12-year-old who had to make a life or death decision like you did?
Well, I don't think a lot of kids at my age are going to be put in the situation I was in. So that was a different situation. But I always would tell a kid that, we all know right from wrong. So you have to kind of sit back and think about the decision you make before you make it, because once you make that decision and if you make the wrong one, it's hard to come back from.
What was like the problem of the decision you had to make?
It wasn't no problem to me. At that time, that just was the norm. That's just the way it was.
How do you think those early experiences shaped you? How you approach trust, loyalty, and leadership today?
Today,
Today.
well, back then, my loyalty was always with my family, and I was taught to be loyal to my family, and I was taught to be loyal to people who was loyal to you. Nowadays, it's hard to be loyal to people because you don't never know what people's going through and what they got going on. So if you be loyal to somebody, he might, or that individual might be doing something wrong. So you have to just be careful who you hang out with and who you trust.
I get that. In the book, there's a moment where violence erupts between you and another kid. Looking back, what advice would you give young people facing similar rage or adversity?
I would just say that we have to, you have to be a little more patient, a little more kind to people.
Patient and kind.
That's real. I ain't gonna lie, you could get far with being patient and kind.
Yeah.
I see, like, I really, I ain't gonna lie, I understand a lot that you're saying. I ain't gonna lie, like, I can relate.
Yeah, you have to, because
You fight too much.
when I was coming through, I never was a compassionate kid. My whole goal was I used to wake up and saying who I'm going to get today, or that's what my mentality was. And then I look back now, I wish I wasn't that person, because that's what it was. I woke up and say kill, steal, and destroy. So every day I went to school, I wasn't thinking about nobody else but myself. And as I got older and grew up now, I know that wasn't the way.
That's real. That's real.
When your cousin laced you, was there a feeling of betrayal, or do you believe it was accidental?
My cousin, say that again, I'm sorry.
When your cousin laced you, was there a feeling
Laced
of
me.
what?
Huh?
I mean,
Okay.
I'll just read.
No, it was that let me know that I had no business doing no drugs, and that made me stop.
How did moments like that affect you and how you viewed your family and friendships afterwards?
Well, again, it made me make a decision that I didn't want to do drugs no more, and I stopped doing. At the age of 20, I used to smoke marijuana. I started smoking marijuana at the age of 11, and I stopped smoking at the age of 20. After that incident, I never smoked another joint in my life, and I used to love smoking marijuana. But then when it come to trust, I never trusted nobody with drugs or none of that stuff. So it put me on a different path for taking care of my body and myself. So I didn't want to be put in that position again.
Yes, sir.
When did basketball begin to feel more than just a game for you?
Well, I started playing basketball when I was 8 or 9 years old, bitty basketball, and we used to play at the 19th Street Boys Club, and it was just fun. And then all of a sudden, as we got older, we started traveling and started playing against like Isaiah Thomas and Mark McGuire and all them boys. and Chicago used to come down here on the train, and we used to go to Chicago. So that made it, that made it start getting serious to me. And then also I played high school ball too, so it was I mean, we was athletes. I ran track, I played football, I played basketball, I played baseball. That's what we did when we was coming through. We played all sports, and you just love the sport about the sports. So it was always serious because you wanted to be the best.
I got a little follow up. You said you played against Isaiah Thomas.
Yes, we used to play against Isaiah Thomas twice a year, and Mark McGuire.
How was the experience of playing against Isaiah?
It was a good experience because Isaiah was tough. He was a good kid, but we had some good kids out of Kansas City that could play too. So they beat us sometime and we beat them.
Like a back and forth.
Yeah, at that time we was going from the boys club. So our boys club, and we had a team called Art Bunker, which it was a Volkswagen company in Kansas City at the time back in the day, and they used to sponsor us. So it was like an all-star team. We had 3 boys clubs in Kansas City at that time. We had 19th Street, 39th Street, and 43rd Street. And what we did was they picked the best players off of each team to go travel, and that's how we was able to go and travel and play against Isaiah.
That's real. What pushed you towards coaching instead of playing? Like, what made you?
My son. I had a son that was starting to grow up, and I wanted to be a part of his life, and I wanted to teach him how to play the game of basketball. So all that came, coaching, all that came with my son, but now also with me playing high school basketball too.
How old is your son now?
Myron Jr. is, I want to say, like, is he 49, 50?
49, 50?
49.
47,
If you don't mind me asking, how old are you?
I'll be 65 March the 7th.
You had him when he was 15?
I had another son to be way before that. I had another son. I was in 8th grade when I had my first child.
8th grade?
Yes.
8th grade.
How old you
I'm 14 again.
14?
You was in the 8th grade getting busy.
Yes.
Breaking the eggs.
What did you see in young players that made you want to guide them and not just train them?
I looked at all the young guys and kids as they was my sons. So it was important when I was in their life, I had to treat them like they was my own. And that's what I did. And it was important to them kids to have the same thing that my son had.
How did the CMH 76ers come about, and what vision did you have for the program?
Well, CMH 76ers came way before I was even thinking about coaching them. It was a guy who had pretty much had a lot of money, and what he did was he put his funds into the inner city and some of the inner city schools. And what he used to do was get all the best players from each high school as an AAU team and as an all-star team, and he started sponsoring them. And just happening that one of my sons played for one of the programs, and he sponsored that program, and then the coach who was coaching that program fell out with the sponsor, and that team dropped in my lap, and that's how I became the coach of the CMH 76ers.
How was your time there? Like, it was fun coaching them?
My time was the best there. We traveled. We lived in 5-star hotels. We traveled. We was on the plane. We flew everywhere we went. We had all the Jumpman, which was Jordan back then, and we had Nike. We was one of Nike's best teams in the country, and it was fun.
Have fun.
And one of my previous follow-up questions, I asked you about your kids. Are you married to any of those ladies that you had the kids with?
I'm not now. I'm divorced with my wife that me and her raised 2 kids together, but we still best friends.
What separated your coaching style from the others at the time?
My mentality. I just had a different mentality, and my kids had the same mentality that I had, and that was really a hardcore mentality. And when we stepped on the court, we just went after them.
What's one coaching moment that still gives you chills when you think about it?
It was a team called New York Riverside. And this team had Ronnie Ortez, Brent L. Brand, Lamar Odom, a guy named Jesse, and they came in Kansas City and they smacked us and beat us by 50 points.
Ooh.
They beat y'all by 50
Keith
points.
Boddicker said, "Good God!"
They just came to Kansas and just beat y'all.
Kansas City and just smacked us.
Just
I mean, they smacked us like
forehand and backhand.
Yeah.
Both sides.
Yeah. They smacked us so bad it wasn't. I just sit on the bench and look stupid. Earl Watson played, Jerron Rush played, Quillion Young played. We had some top guys, but them dudes was just better.
By 50, I know that was like a good. Did y'all learn off y'all mistakes? Like,
Yeah, we learned. Believe it or not, during my whole stretch, we was 205-5.
205-5. You won 200 games and only lost 5.
Yes.
God,
I believe
that's
it.
crazy. 205. That's crazy. You were a great coach.
No, I wasn't a great coach. I just had great players.
Did you put your team together like yourself, or it was just like?
No, I put my team together. I was like I put my team together like college coaches did. I used to get on airplanes and go in people's house and recruit them.
Like talk to their parents and stuff about.
Yes.
Yeah. See, that's being a good coach. That's like.
Yeah, that's so. And the only reason I did that because New York Riverside smacked us by 50.
So after that, you had to change.
I had to change. I refused to go on that circuit and get beat like that again.
Did you keep Earl?
Yes. Yeah, Earl. Now Earl was like a son to me. You know, I taught Earl basically how to be a point guard because Earl at that time he was playing around a lot of great players, and Earl wanted to score like the big guys scored. But Earl he scored a lot in high school, but when it was time to transition to the next level, he wasn't going to be able to score like that because he wasn't a big man. He was a point guard. And Earl will tell you, we was at Virginia Beach at Boo Williams tournament. Earl knocked on my door about 2 o'clock in the morning in my hotel room, and he came to me. He's like, "Coach," he was the senior. He said, "Coach, I'm not getting no colleges not recruiting me." And like Mike told you, I'm gonna be real with you and be honest with you. I said, the only reason ain't nobody recruiting you, Earl, because you're trying to score with the big boys. You're a point guard. You got to learn how to be the point guard. You got to learn how to get the offense set, and you got to learn how to pass the ball and move the ball around and get some assists. I said, you still can average 15 points and 25 assists, but the kids was around him that was playing on that team they were some cold brothers, and they could score. And then Earl settled down and started being a point guard, passing the ball, running the offense. And we ended up winning that tournament, and then we went to Vegas, and then Earl started settling down, and that's when Mike Krzyzewski at Duke, Roy Williams at KU, Jim Herrick at UCLA, Jim Calhoun at Connecticut, they came up to me and said, "What can we do to get Earl?" And Jim Herrick at UCLA said, "Hey, can we get Earl?" And I told him, I said, "If you fly in that Monday, I have Earl to sign with you." They flew in, and Earl signed with him. But Earl had to learn how to be a point guard. But I had to be honest with him. And once he took that and paid attention, that's how Earl became a point guard. But Earl was one of the hardest working kids you ever been around.
So you said so he developed into he started getting his exposure senior year.
He started getting his exposure his senior year, and the thing was that he learned how to play point guard and learn how to get his teammates involved.
I always thought you could. I always thought you were supposed to be you were supposed to have your exposure and your light by senior
But see,
year.
it was different. Earl was the point guard. Mike Watson was a shooting guard, and Mike Watson could shoot the lights out. Earl was the guy who brought the ball down and get everybody in the position.
Yeah. So, what finally convinced you to it was time to tell your life story in book form?
My life story, I've been trying to get my life story out in book form when they came after me for paying kids to play basketball. That changed my whole life, and that was something that came from not our culture but other cultures, because they didn't like to see what I was doing in the inner city and with black kids.
You were NIL before NIL?
I was NIL before NIL.
Catching up drift.
So basically, you went to jail for paying kids to do what they love.
Yes.
That's
wrong.
That's the system.
Went to penitentiary for 3 years.
3 years.
I know all your players were hurt.
Yes, and it not only was hurt, but it hurt them for making the league, NBA. Earl was blessed because Earl had got out of the system before they came and got me. But Jerron Rush and Quillion Young, they was the number 1 and number 2 players in the country. And by them not having my leadership and my direction, they never made the NBA.
Why was it important to tell this story honestly, including the pain rather than just the success?
It was just important to me just to get my life story out, to just to let people know that sometimes when people do things to you and say things about you, that don't mean it's true. And that was important for me having Mike to write this book, because
what made Michael Watson the right person to tell your story?
Again, it was God that it was just God, because I had 2 or 3 people who were supposed to write the story many years ago and they never did. And me and Mike was at the house and I said, Mike, why don't you write my story? And then Mike looked at me like, I said, no, you can write the story. And what was important to me was I figured Mike was the right person, because I needed somebody that I can trust and was going to be loyal. And by Mike was that knew the game and knew the city and knew everything, I think, God put him right in my place. It wasn't me who wanted him to write the story. God had him to write the story.
What does the word hustle truly represent in your life beyond basketball?
Well, hustle, I was a hustler. And when I say I was a hustler, I was a hustler. I used to hustle on the streets all my life. That's what I used to do. I used to, and then when it came to basketball, I went around the country to hustle to get players to play for me. But I always was a hustler.
Was there a chapter that was difficult to revisit was it difficult to revisit emotionally while writing the book?
It was terrible. It was a few chapters that was difficult. Even when I started off with telling the story about my brother Mike, and then the other parts in my book with my other brothers. So yeah, the whole book was not the whole book, but it was a lot of challenging, and sometimes when I read it, it hurts, and I still cry.
Would you want to number those chapters or no?
You had to read it.
Looking back, what did basketball save you from, and what did it give you?
Well, basketball, when it say save me, it really helped me to help kids. And that was important for me because once my son started playing basketball, then they put me in a position to get to know other young men that didn't have dads in their life. And that was the joy I got out of it too. Be able to mentor young men and help young men to stay off the streets.
That's real. How has your definition of success changed from then to now?
What really changed from then and now is just it got me more spiritual and got me more connected with God. And it got me to the point where I always want to help people and care about people now. And that's what's important to me. That would change my whole outlook from then to now.
When did you start getting like closer to God and stuff?
I started getting closer to God when the first time I got locked up. They put me in max security, and they locked me down 23 hours a day, and they gave me an hour out to use the phone and take a shower. And I was locked down the first time like that for 3 months. And then I had called home, and I talked to my wife, and I was like, babe, I don't know what to do. And she was like, hey, you got to start praying and reading the Bible. So that was one of the journeys to start putting me close to God.
Isolating yourself and stuff. Just made you.
They isolated me. I didn't isolate myself.
Yeah, not isolating yourself, but I know what you're talking. Like,
yeah,
being isolated helped you get closer to God. That's real.
23 hours a day by yourself, and just in one little room is hard.
It's a bathroom, basically.
Yeah, that's all it was. It was a toilet and sink.
Yeah, it's terrible.
What's one thing that people misunderstand most about your journey?
One thing people most understand about my journey was that my goal was to help the kids and not to hurt the kids. And the way it was presented that I hurted the kids when my goal was to help the kids.
If today's youth only remember one lesson from your story, what would you want that lesson to be?
That lesson would be, that's a good question. That is a good question. That lesson would be still trusting your coach and your parents.
What role does forgiveness of yourself and others play in your life now?
Me forgiving myself? What role? You know what? Once I started really focusing on God, and once I repented and asked God for forgiveness, once I realized that God forgave me and started opening doors for me, that was important to me. So I thank God for giving me the opportunity to forgive myself and forgive others.
If you could leave one piece of wisdom with every young person listening today, what would it be?
To get to know God early in your life.
Yes, sir. Amen. That's it? Just to get to know God earlier.
That's it.
God.
God.
That's what I like to hear. And that's our time today with Myron Piggie. We appreciate and thank you for sharing with us.
Before we go, can you share with the listeners where to find your book?
Yes, you can go on Amazon.com and then MyronPiggieBook.com.
I'm Zade,
And I'm PTZ,
and this is Jenna Talk for Youth by Youth on Jenna Fest Worldwide Radio.
the #1 teen show broadcasting in the Midwest on 152 radio stations globally.
We out here.